right, hey everybody, this is Max Duvall here of Sonic Dorms. I have a very, very special guest. I've been waiting to interview Kalie Shorr for a very long time, and she is here in the Sonic Dorm with me. Of course, we're celebrating her new EP entitled My Type. It is out everywhere you stream music now. Welcome to Sonic Dorms, Kalie Shorr. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've been called one of the most distinctive voices in songwriting today, not just by me, but by a lot of other people out there that I've seen. But before anyone else ever said that, when did you first feel like you had something unique to say to the world of music?
It's a great question. I always wanted to write songs. I wrote my first song like around 6 years old. I don't think I had anything unique to say then, but I think as I got older and was looking around at the things that were happening with my family and just the way I grew up, I started sharing those things online and really seeing people who needed to hear songs that made them feel less alone in that kind of trauma. And I think that that has been a lesson I've continued to learn. But I first started posting my songs online as like a teenager. So I was very lucky to have that early just understanding of the gravity of what a song can do for someone. So I was definitely pretty young. So
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's really evident to me about the way you write songs is that you have a way of songwriting that's very personable and it's almost confessional. And that's something that I latched on to. You make me want to pay attention to lyrics at times more so than the music itself, which is really rare for me because normally I'm more of a melody person more than
uh-huh.
a lyrical person. But that says a lot when you come in with this way of writing words that makes me want to sit up and pay attention to what you're saying more so than the melodies. And don't get me wrong, your melodies are great and the music's great, but your lyrics are so strong.
Thank you. That is sorry, there's something on my camera. Okay, got rid of it. That was gonna bug the shit out of me. Um, Thank you. That is the best compliment I can imagine getting, because the lyrics are so important to me. And, I have a huge love for guitars specifically. That's my favorite instrument. I love producing, I love all of that, but lyrics are always what I come back to. And I think, giving, if I ever had to, because people always ask you this question, I don't know why, but they're always like, if you ever had to give up music, what would you do? And I'm like, don't ask me that. Like, I don't want to find out what that reality is like. But I do feel like I would feel very fulfilled, if I was just a writer, whether that was like poems or books. I'm working on a novel. Obviously, I'm like doing so many things at once. It's not like at the top of my list, but the words are like really, really what drew me to songwriting and are what anchor everything I do.
I'm sure you've gotten this a lot before, but just for people that are listening to this by way of my channel, who are some of the writers, whether that be within song or out of song, maybe authors that you grew up reading that inspired and influenced you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always since I remember the first time I listened to Alanis Morissette. Like I was telling someone the other day, I wish I could go back in time and like experience Jagged Little Pill for the first time, just like laying on my bed, staring up at the ceiling and having my mind absolutely blown. Her style of writing is so incredible because I love her vocabulary. I love fitting like a good four-syllable word in a pop song that like you would not expect, like dichotomy or you know, anything like that. Uh, but her way of looking inward and having accountability for herself, I think is so amazing. I think Taylor Swift's music has really done that, especially over her past few albums. But like, what good is introspection if you're only thinking about what other people did? And so having somebody to look up to growing up who's willing to take a hard look in the mirror and be like, oh, this is my fault. I think that that's like a great lesson for young girls and everybody to be like, okay, how am I making this situation worse? Oh, this might be my fault. So she's a huge one. I love Tom Robbins. Jitterbug Perfume is one of my favorite books ever. It's very lyrical in its writing, and so I do find a lot of inspiration and things like that. Like when I read a book, actually, this book is one that I wrote a song about. It's called Dead Girls. But when I read a book, I go and I like fold up the bottom pages when I find something that inspires me to write a lyric idea. And I always like go back when I can't figure out what to write about, and I'll find like a sentence or a story that they shared. And this is actually an incredible book, and I became friends with the author because I would not stop posting about it. So her name's Alice Bolin, and that book really inspired me on a lot of levels. But I mean, there's definitely just, and that book is about kind of how America and the world consumes true crime and their obsession with, well, it's essays on surviving an American obsession. And this is also a book where she takes a hard look at her relationship with consuming true crime media and what it might be doing to her mentally and society at large. And I think that that's just incredible. So I feel like the things that draw me to writers are usually like a certain degree of accountability and introspection that means you're not always the hero in your story, you know?
Yeah, and it's great because it never comes off as if they're playing the victim. It's
Right.
always in a sense that they're taking accountability, but it always feels like very forward thinking, if that makes any sense. And I
Hmm.
think that that's a wonderful thing. It's never, well, woe is me. So
Right.
I think that's a beautiful thing to have in mind when you read these artists or these authors.
Yeah, it's sometimes difficult as a songwriter because people, there is that trope, and there's been that trope with Taylor Swift so many times. And it's like, oh, she's always playing the victim, or I've gotten comments like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, because sometimes you are. And the thing about a song is it only encapsulates like not only one side of the story, but also only one moment of that side of the story. So my emotions on my breakup, Unkiss and Effie Forever, and my song Messy are all about the same breakup. And they're all very different takes on it because they're written during different moments of my grieving process. So they get to a place where, you know, you're really looking at it from a multifaceted angle, but no song can encapsulate every single feeling you have about one situation. So it's like, yes, sometimes I'm the victim in the same story, sometimes I'm the bad guy in the same story. And that's why I love Antihero by Taylor Swift so much, because it's like she actually really did sum up that entire feeling in 3 minutes, and that is impressive.
It goes to show though that we as people, as human beings, aren't perfect. And I think there's this thing right now where it's like everybody almost is like has to be held accountable for being this perfect human being. It's like, no, we're messy. Like as human beings, we are messy overall. And I think it's okay to use songwriting or poetry or whatever it is as a almost a form of catharsis, really, to help channel these feelings into something positive. Because I think almost like writing into a diary, as someone who writes poetry, to me, it's always like I need to get these feelings out. And I don't know if that works for you the same way, but when you write, do you feel like it's a form of catharsis for you, like a form of therapy almost?
Oh, 100%. And it's very funny because when I do, like I also go to therapy, but me and my therapist will like dissect the lyrics I wrote that week because I definitely struggle with naming my emotions, which might surprise some people. Because I can be like way too analytical about things and like dissecting a situation and like the events of it and trying to figure out what the other person was doing versus like even saying how I feel. Like one time it took an entire hour long therapy session for me to say I am sad. And then I just started crying because I was like, wow, it feels so good to admit that I'm sad. And my therapist was like looking at me, and we know each other really well. And she was like, buddy. And I was like, okay, okay, all right, we're gonna work on this. So sometimes I'll write a song and that will be how I find out how I felt about something, is reading it back. And that's an invaluable tool to have as a person. That's why I think everybody should have a diary, or at least like, even if words aren't your thing, like draw or make a Pinterest board or something to track where you're at. Because seeing it like tangibly in front of you, you can be like, oh, that's how I feel about that. Or sometimes I'll be in denial about a breakup and I'll be trying to skip to the acceptance phase, and I'm still in the denial phase, heading towards, just the absolute sadness. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we were definitely skipping over a couple steps here. Guess the song has showed that, and we'll just go back, start reprocessing. But that's like definitely true for me, but especially in that like one area of just like writing and then seeing how I feel.
Do you ever write something down and then it takes weeks, maybe even months, and then you look back at that piece of writing and suddenly it all makes sense to you in a way it
Oh,
didn't before?
yeah, totally.
Hmm.
I mean, I have this one song that I've been working on producing this week. It's called 2093. And usually when I'm scared of a song, it means it's great. It's like usually not even stuff I'm afraid to admit to other people. It's stuff I'm not ready to admit to myself. And it took me a full year. It was like literally 366 days to start and finish the song. And I was so dead set on finishing it by myself. And I needed to bring a friend in for like the last session to be like, okay, like I need you because you know how I feel about this maybe better than I do. And yeah, it can take a long time sometimes to be ready to process that. And I mean, it's just a really, I mean, it's an incredible tool, but it's really heartbreaking. But when I'm like scared to admit a song, that usually means it's going to be a good one. And then, after that 366-day period, I'm looking at these lyrics that I've written stuff down from over that entire time, and then I'm seeing how it all adds up to one thing, and I'm like, oh, huh, that's interesting. I didn't know that I felt that way about this, but I guess I do. And now that I know that, we're gonna go into therapy. I'm gonna show her my lyrics, then we're gonna unpack it.
No, I mean that's amazing. And moving forward here, I gotta mention because the first thing that I heard by you that caught my attention was your 2021 EP, I Got Here by Accident, which was produced by Butch Walker. This EP was a revelation to me. I remember the first time hearing this and going, this is some of the sharpest, as I put it to you earlier, fluorescent songwriting I have heard in quite some time. There's something about it that was just absolutely memorable, unforgettable, and anthemic and personable, and it just had all these different facets to it that excited me as a music fan, but also as a fan of just proper songwriting, as I put it. There was a quality there that made me want to champion this record for life. What did that project mean to you personally, looking back?
Getting to work with Butch Walker was like unbelievable. Because if you asked me at pretty much any point in my teenage years to now, like who my like top three artists were, it would be like Butch Walker, Kurt Cobain, and Alanis Morissette. So to get to work with even one of them is crazy. I found him on a before Spotify. I remember I used to go to thrift stores and I would buy mix CDs that were because people just donate their CDs. It doesn't have to be like defined. Sometimes they'd just be like, it would just say like sad mix or something. And I'd buy those and I'd go put them in my boombox and I'd listen to them. And I'd usually, not like half the songs, but sometimes I'd find something really beautiful on them. And I remember finding Mixtape by Butch Walker. And I was probably like 12. And I hated telling him that because I was like, I'm so sorry to tell you that like this out to like date it. But I heard that song and I was just like, oh my God. And they weren't even labeled. So I had to go type the lyrics into Google to find out who the artists in the song, like lyrics even were. But I just fell in love with him from then on. And then I found out that he was producing records I already loved. And, My Happy Ending by Avril Lavigne was like, I don't think my music would sound the way it does even now, 15 years later, if I hadn't had that. Oh my God, 20 years later. That's depressing. 20 years later. if I hadn't heard his music and his productions. And then, Thinking of You by Katy Perry was always one of my favorite songs. And I became obsessed with like seeing the common denominator on all of my favorite songs. And this was when you could, look at the lyric booklet and dissect the lyrics and see who worked on them. So I would find a songwriter like Antonin Armato, and then I would go into Google or ask Jeeves, probably, if we're being honest, and ask what other songs that they had written. And then I would find new artists from there. So Butch Walker was like at the center of all of my favorite songs, both as a producer, a songwriter, and an artist. So that was unbelievable to get to work with him. And I had such a strategy for like how to get to Butch Walker. And it involved Instagram DMs, somebody I knew at CMT who used to play his rock songs on the radio. One of my managers who knew like one of his managers. And I just was like, let's execute this all at the same time. And it worked. And I was like, that's crazy. And now he's one of my closest friends. He's been giving me some feedback as I've gotten more into producing. And I'm like, that's low-key crazy that I have the opportunity to text Butch Walker a demo I've been working on and get his thoughts on it. But he made that process so special. And it was during COVID. So it was just the two of us in the studio and his wife bringing in coffee and like just being awesome. And I learned so much in that period. He worked so fast. Like, I think on that project, we only did 3 vocal takes for each song, which was like nuts to even like do that. And I had to be capable of that as a vocalist, but you also need a great producer to pull that out of you. And it was just fun. And to not only have done that project with him, we got to play at the Grand Ole Opry together, and he made his Opry debut, which was something his dad like would have just loved to see, and that meant a lot to Butch for that reason. I also got to play my favorite Butch song, Alicia Amnesia, with him at my EP release party, and now we like stay in touch, and I get to go backstage at his shows, and it's just still like a pinch me moment. And I do firmly believe that like you shouldn't meet your idols. Like one of my favorite bands, I have actively avoided meeting the lead singer of, like to the point where I've left things because I know I'm not going to like it and I don't want to find that out because they mean so much to me. But Butch was just absolutely the opposite of that. And everyone I've met through him has been lovely. And it's just really nice to see somebody that you look up to so much be that person in real life and not just in their music.
That's so wonderful to hear. Would you ever, I mean, this is a stupid question, but would you ever work with him, or is there an open door for you to work and collaborate with him again?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would have worked with him on this EP, but he's on a international tour with Train right now, so the timing didn't work out because I really had to get it out. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think there's a world where we don't work together in the future, for sure.
Awesome to hear, because yeah,
Yeah.
that's it for me. Like that's I had to listen to it again last night, and I hadn't listened to it in a few months because I had to get myself all jazzed up for
Yeah.
this interview today, and I was like, oh man, I need to bring this back out. Now you brought up songwriting and your vocal ability earlier. I know some writers out there like to polish endlessly, re-record, record their vocals. Um, Others chase the raw moment. Which one is more important to you? Would you rather have the raw moment specifically captured for yourself on record, or would you rather endlessly chase something else and something that's like, let's just call it perfection, right?
Yeah, I think there's value to both methods, but I typically have like a pretty like set reason for doing both. I do prefer the raw vocal method to just capture that emotion. I like to do my vocal takes from top to bottom versus, you know, you can still capture raw emotion if you're doing like verse, second verse, and then chorus because you're using different like ranges in your voice. But when you do it all the way through and then comp from there, you're getting the actual performance aspect because you're building that energy in real time, especially on a song like my song Lullaby, like starts as an acoustic ballad and goes all the way to just being like a full rock song. And so I think capturing that is so important because if you do it, you're going to lose it if you're going back and forth between like sections, like you're not feeling the real climax of the song. So for songs like that, that's very important to me. And I would say that I typically approach it from that perspective. But There's songs that are like a little snarkier, like my songs Effie Forever and let's see what other ones. Effie Forever and Amy specifically, where they have this like sarcasm to them. And one of my pet peeves, and this is so specific, and it's okay if people don't agree with me, but I hate like fake laughing in songs. And like, you can tell when it's forced, and it's just like this little giggle. And I'm like, oh my God, calm down. Like, you can just tell. Um, so if it involves that kind of energy, I'm a perfectionist about it. Like, when you're singing a line like, um, oh, what's the one in Amy? Like, do you want the other half of my sandwich? Because I know how much you love my leftovers. It's like comedy. The delivery has to be perfect, more so than emotional. So on like my kind of funnier, snarky songs, I like go like, and I am definitely a perfectionist about that. But I also love to keep in organic moments that happen in the studio. So in Choke, at the end of the bridge, you can hear the producer say, um, I kind of like that one. And I'm like, yeah. And then we go into the solo. And yesterday, I was writing a song with my roommates, Katie Mack and Grace Greenan, who are, I, I live in this house and we just sit around and write songs and play guitar all the time. And it's incredible. We were writing a song for Grace that was called, it's called Boys Who Don't Care If I Live or Die. And the outro is now a conversation that we were having during the session where Grace was like, I was in the hospital hooked up to an IV and he was watching my story and he didn't text me. And I'm like, Grace, that's the epitome of doesn't care if you live or die. And now that's the outro to the song, like verbatim. So it's kind of an amalgamation of all of them. But I love that that there's two different approaches because there are, but they both have their value. That was a long-winded answer, but I feel passionately about it.
That's all. That's what I was looking for. I think those are the
But
answers that matter the most, are the ones that just come straight from the heart and aren't formulated. You brought up a song. I'm so glad you did because I'm like, it's my favorite song on your new EP, My Type. It's called Choke.
thank you.
And there's some incredible wordplay on here, great lyrics. I mean, I've had to write them down. When you say you've mastered the absence of truth, my biggest crime is reacting. I'll spoon feed you another excuse.
Thank
Like, I'm floored by that.
thank
Amazing. It's just so matter of fact and so like, I mean, it just leaves me speechless, as you can tell.
you.
What was the inspiration behind Choke?
Well, okay. So I was a little crazy and had a little bit of um a meltdown, justified, as you can tell in the song. Um, I will also say the person that I wrote that about, that is their favorite song on the EP. So, you know, um, but so I had part of my rollout for the EP has been making these like very dramatic videos where I'm like yelling the song into an ex's Ring camera or vandalizing their house, or I just put up a billboard in Nashville outside of in their neighborhood that says "You ruined my vacation." And I don't believe in lying on social media, and I'm not. I'm just doing uh like on like an old like uh what was it called? Unsolved Mysteries, when they do like a crime scene dramatization. That's what I'm
Hmm.
doing. These are all things that have actually happened. I'm just reenacting them. So I showed up to my ex's house. He had not been answering, and he had been like, "Let's get back together. I'm still in love with you." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Great." And then he just ghosts, and that's something he loves to do. I call it playing dead because it's a specific type of ghosting he does. And I showed up out front of his house. I called him like 8 times, and then I'm like talking to him through the door, and I'm like, just come out here and tell me you don't love me, and I'll leave you alone, and I'll never talk to you again. And he like just it ended up being this whole thing. And the craziest part is we almost got back together again after that. So I'm like, sir, I'm crazy at this point, and it's clearly it's a messy breakup, and it is exactly as messy as the song says. But I wrote that song the day after I did that. I went into a writing session and I was like, guys, I did something, and I would love your help in unpacking. So these songs are not made up at all, not even a little bit.
I think this is part of the magic, though. I think it's part of the fact that there is this honesty behind everything. And you can tell, there's a lot of pop music out there, and I don't want to throw any shade on anybody where you're like, okay, maybe, maybe not. But there's an authenticity in the way that you write that is part of the charm of, I think, why people want to come back to these songs because they find them relatable, or they find, even if they're not relatable, there's a truthfulness there that just makes it an earnestness to it that, for me personally, it just makes me gravitate towards it. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
and I don't see that going anywhere. I'm pretty sure that's just who you are as a songwriter, right? So.
Yeah. It's just like been less I'm just let more and more confident in doing that, which is why it just keeps kind of getting more, but I don't know what more I could even really admit at this point. But yeah, it's been a kind of a journey to getting there, but that's absolutely true. And it's not going anywhere.
Do you find yourself chasing these moments in your personal life so that you could maybe get more material, or is this something that's just going to happen instinctively as you continue to grow into this?
I mean, it's kind of like as much as it's authentic, I hope this makes sense. As much as it's authentic, these are just they're kind of like the promo videos I'm doing where they are like dramatizations, not because I'm exaggerating, but because they're right when I'm feeling that. Like that was the morning after. Of course, my emotions are going to be up here. Most of the time, they're like here, and I can look at that situation holistically. But that's kind of what I love about songs. You know, they really can only capture like one moment, and they're going to be exaggerated. They're going to be like the absolute height of what you're feeling, and that's a special thing to be able to like encapsulate. I don't think I chase it out. I've wondered this though. This has been part of my journey inwards is like, am I seeking this out? But I think that the real problem is that I've been on and off with one person for like 8 years, intermittently, and it's just the same thing every time. So I think that I will seem less like I'm chasing it when I give that up, which I'm currently doing a pretty good job of doing. Yeah, but I don't think I like chase it out with new people. And also, when I'm in a relationship, like a real one, like I was in one for 6 years and one for four, I am like actually like very balanced. And like, if anything, I've been told that I underreact. Like my ex was like, "Could you like not use a monotone when you're talking? Because I don't really know how you feel about things." I'm like, "We could just listen to me telling you how I feel about it. That would probably be okay." But I'm like, I don't think I should. I don't think it's healthy to yell at you to make you get my point. So I'm kind of like less toxic than I come off as, but I'm also owning it in my songs and on social media because again, like these songs are just written about like the height of the emotion. So I'm going to perform them both in videos and on stage as if they're happening in that moment and kind of channeling that exact emotion, even if I'm much calmer about it now, if that makes any sense.
Sure does. And you brought up social media. That's another thing that I find very just impressive about the way that you put yourself together in that whole world, because that whole world can be so tricky these days, especially, and how people can misinterpret or just generally speaking, interpret anything that you post online.
Mm.
How was this a learning process for you, actually, like learning what that online persona was going to be and how to post and react and whatever it is when it comes to displaying that version of yourself online, whether it's an honest version of yourself or a partly honest version of yourself or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think I mean it's definitely like there's pushback for sure on how I am on social media, but people also can't deny that it works and I enjoy it. And that's part of my whole approach to social media is like if you aren't having fun doing it, you're gonna just want to quit. And part of my like side hustle that I was doing is coaching other artists and brands on social media. And it doesn't really feel like a side hustle because it's so relevant. But that's also great because I don't need a social media manager because I am one. um, but part of it is like one of the biggest things is just the psychology of it and protecting your mental space when it comes to putting yourself out there so transparently. Because if anybody who's doing social media correctly is putting themselves out there, even if it's like in a kind of more aesthetic way, you're still letting people into your world. Like you don't have to go on there and word vomit the way that I do for it to be that. But you have to be like comfortable being perceived. And as humans, we're really not, and we're not designed to be. Like that is not part of our like evolution, is being comfortable being perceived by millions of people at once. So yeah, it's definitely like it's calculated. It's more calculated than people think. And I had to like, as I got my new team, like remind them, I'm like, hey, I'm not a loose cannon. You don't have to worry about me posting something that's going to get me canceled. I'm actually like very, very calculated about this. And everything I do is with an intention. And it's to be relatable and to say things that people don't know how to put into words themselves. It's exactly like songwriting for me. When I post a video about, you know, a breakup or my mental health or whatever, it's the same exact part of my brain that writes songs. And I like the challenge of keeping it under 3 minutes. And that's the same thing I love about songwriting. And comedy and songwriting are the same, and your execution's so important. So it's like I make these and I'm like very, very intentional about what I put on there. But I would say like it is always very me. But again, it's kind of like just this one moment. And then the only character I play is me in the past, if that makes any sense. So I'm never playing anybody else, just like me in different times. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think I think this is still all very new to most people, like
Yes.
social media in general and how to approach that. But believe, in my humble opinion, you've kind of mastered that whole realm in your own way. And it's really cool to see like somebody actually out there like putting it down in a way that's again very purposeful, but also very true to the spirit of that character. Let's just call it a character that we've heard throughout the songs. By way of like, if you look, it's almost like yet another doorway through the, I guess the headspace of the author.
Yeah, definitely. I also think social media is empowering because you're controlling your own narrative, whereas you used to just be perceived by how other people perceived you. And you didn't get the chance to speak for yourself. You had to do an interview or but it was most of what people consumed about celebrities was what other people said about them. And then it would be like Courtney Love sits down to address the rumors surrounding her husband's death for the first time in a year. And that was the first time she got to speak about the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to her. That's what I do when I fall asleep is I watch Courtney Love and Fiona Apple interviews. They're very entertaining, but also heartbreaking. But they're two of like people that were I really really look up to for their authenticity and candor and just willingness to be themselves, but also kind of portray a character. And I think Taylor Swift does that too. Like I kind of think my social media promo for this EP has been inspired by her Blank Space music video where she was like, okay, if you're all going to say that this is who I am, then fine, I will be that. And I'll show you what it looks like and just kind of have this meltdown. But it's a very intentional chaos on my part. And I have a lot of fun doing it. And that's what gives me the energy to post on social media every single day when really I just want to be producing a song in my bedroom for 12 hours.
You've nailed it, and it's really cool. And I think it's really great to see somebody out there doing it in a way that again feels authentic and memorable. And just like your songs, like you said, it's there's a
Yeah.
certain kind of aesthetic in it. But really quick, I wanted to bring up this EP because obviously it's what's out there now, and I think that this is yet another batch of wonderful material that you've put out there for people to listen to. So, what made this specific collection of songs the collection of songs that you felt was right for you to put out now?
Well, I think part of, you know, art imitates life, imitates social media, imitates life again. Um, but I felt like most of what I was talking about on social media was this kind of like unhinged type B person who says everything that comes to their mind. And I'm working on a full album that will represent a lot more facets about my personality, because I always say to people, like, who you date is not and cannot be the most interesting thing about you. But so much of my content has been about my misfortunes in my love life. And so I was like, okay, well, let's put out an EP that is just that. It's called My Type because it's about my toxic type that I gravitate towards too. Although now it's really just all like one to two people. Um, but and just those patterns that I have that connect directly back to the type of content I was making, because I got 50,000 followers pretty much just from me talking, who weren't even aware that I did music. So half of my followers follow me from being a fan of my music, and then half of them are just like, this girl's funny and crazy. So I was like, okay, let's try to marry those things, put out these songs that I love, that I want to be on the album, but do them all at once in a package where it's just singing about toxic relationships. I've never actually put out a single project that only talks about relationships. This is my first time doing that. But it's because it's part of a larger story, and the album is going to be like, okay, well, this is why I do that. This is who I am. This is my, perspective on all these different things that have happened to me with my family, with my relationship to my own mental health, with, friendships. So it's really like I picked the songs that kind of fit that narrative, which again is only one part of me, and it's probably the least important one, to kind of be a segue between this version of me that people got to know online and then the version of me that I actually am, for like all the different components that make up a person.
Okay. And you brought up something really important to me and my listeners, and something I'm continuously trying to really bring out there, which is mental health. I think
Mm-hmm.
mental health awareness is really important. And I love the fact that it's becoming more prevalent now as far as people speaking up about it than it was ever before. Myself included, I deal with a lot of anxiety. I go through bouts of depression almost weekly, and it's something I've had to manage. I think becoming more comfortable in your own skin makes it a little easier to manage.
Yeah.
What is that? What does that mean to you personally, and how you can evoke that through your own social media presence, your music, etc.?
I mean, I started opening up more about being bipolar a few years ago, and I hated it. I didn't want to do it. And it definitely attracted comments from people who clearly have no idea what they're talking about. But there's such a stigma surrounding mental health, and specifically a big one about bipolar. Anytime you have like a mental illness that people use as an adjective to describe people negatively, whether they have it or not. Like, and I also have ADHD, which I think arguably affects me in my day-to-day life probably more than being bipolar. Um, but the combo, hell of a combo. Wow. What a fun time to have to deal with those. And that's another one where people are like, oh, you show ADD, like you can't pay attention to people. And I'm like, ugh. So they're both like, insults. So managing that and dealing with people online who have clearly never met someone who's bipolar or even done any research on the topic. I posted one part of my Unfamous series where I talked about this friend group meltdown that I had that affected my relationship I was in at the time. It was their reaction to my song Amy. And it was like, honestly, like in retrospect, like bullying. And again, now that accountability is an important thing to me when it comes to just being a human. But the more I've looked at that, the more I've gone to therapy about it, I'm like, oh, wow, I actually really did nothing wrong in that situation. Because all I tried to do was tell them, like, hey, I'm having an episode right now. I'm depressed. I don't think I'm going to leave the house for like about a week and a half. I just need to like read and not drink any alcohol and get a good night's sleep and just repeat and maybe go to a yoga class. That's what I do when I'm having an episode. And everyone reacted terribly. And then as like, they were all talking about how me releasing Amy was indicative of my mental health being poor, because what a rude song to release, and why would I still care about this thing that happened 2.5 years before? And it was just like really bizarre. And honestly, no one's place to comment on that if you're not me or my team. Like, no. And again, I was so intentional with putting that song out and being careful with how I did it because I know there's other people involved. So that was just like so difficult. But when they found out that I was having an episode, they used it to dismiss all of my emotions and like pile on and assume that that might be why I was making those decisions when it wasn't. And I had a whole label at that time. Like nobody was going to let me do that. Like if I was being, if I was just being mentally ill. Like they were like, no, this is a good song. You have a good perspective on it. So I kind of like re-traumatized myself a little bit when I reposted the Unfamous series because I was like sharing all these things that were happening behind closed doors and opening it up to the peanut gallery to comment the same things. And so when I shared in that episode of it that I did that I was having an episode of the bipolar variety, people were like, oh, well, then you're probably not retelling the story accurately because you're bipolar. So how could you have even known what was going on? And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's a crazy thing to say to a stranger. So I had to really just get more comfortable with that kind of reaction and remind myself that it is like way fewer people were saying that than were saying, wow, thanks for talking about this. I'm bipolar and it's really nice to see somebody who like lives with it and has succeeded in spite of it and has, taken the steps to take care of themselves. That's the majority of the responses, but you hang on to the negative ones. But yeah, it's not easy. And that has actually been the most difficult thing for me personally to talk about, is that side of my mental illness. Like, it doesn't feel nearly as scary to be like, oh, I had an eating disorder, because I did, but that's like, people don't blame you for that. It's like, they're like, oh, that's society. And then bipolar is like, something is wrong in my brain. Like, that doesn't fire correctly, the way it's supposed to. So that's definitely accurate and something that's difficult for sure. But I think I've gotten better at approaching it.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that. I think it's important to again just wisp away the naysayers out there because there's always going to be someone with an opinion,
Yeah.
and everybody has an opinion that they want to put out on display literally every second of the day with social media at their fingertips. And it's all impulsive, I find. Not a lot of people have the restraint to like, hey, I can just kind of keep this to myself. Do I have to put literally everything that I'm thinking about out there for
Right.
people to comment
Yeah.
on?
About other people too. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I should be allowed to say pretty much anything I want to about myself if it's accurate. But other people like really love to say whatever they want to about yourself as well. Um, I think the best piece of advice I have about that is like remembering with negative opinions. Like one of my friends was having a really hard time because one of her family members was being awful to her and just like criticizing her life choices and all this. And I was like, you know that family member's homophobic, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so that person clearly has bad opinions. So why would their opinion on your music be any better than their other bad opinions? Like, why do you want someone with bad opinions to like you? They don't like good things. It's actually more of an insult if they like you, and you might be doing something wrong. So if the haters who hate good things hate you, maybe you're a good thing. So that's just my unsolicited advice for everybody listening, but I hope it helps.
Well, Kaylee, I really appreciate you. I mean, I just had one more question for you before we wrap things up for today, and thank you so much for doing this. But when you look ahead to your next chapter, is there a sound, a style, or a subject that you're itching to explore that might surprise people?
Yeah, I think I got to try it out on tour earlier this year, but there's a song called Evolution. It will be the first song I release that I wrote entirely by myself. I I love collaborating, so it makes it, I get too excited and I bring a half finished idea to other people. But this one was really just me. And it talks about my journey deconstructing from growing up evangelical in a house that was very anti-choice, anti-gay. I was closeted. I was taught a lot of hateful things growing up, and I had to unlearn those completely on my own. and that song talks about that. And the hook of it is we don't believe in evolution, so everything stays just the same. I wasn't allowed to believe in dinosaurs. That's how Christian I grew up. So I'm excited to kind of sing about that because I've briefly touched on it in my songs before, but this is my first one that really is like deconstructing that and again, looking around and being like, well, why do I care if these people like me if they hate gay people? Like, why do their opinions matter? So I think it got a great reaction on tour, and a lot of people told me how much it meant to them and have been asking for me to release it. So it'll be special on a lot of different levels, both me writing it by myself and also just the subject matter. So I'm really excited to get that out there.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear that. And what's the one feeling or thought that you hope people carry with them after hearing one of your songs?
That's a great question. Honestly, that it's okay to be messy and it's all temporary. Like my songs go like this, not because I'm bipolar, but because life goes like this. And there's all these highs and all these lows, and you're usually feeling them all at once. I've had the best day of my life and the worst day of my life, like in the same week before. And so you're just holding on for the next, like, life is a bunch of happy songs strung together by sad songs. And you have to feel the sad songs while you're listening to them and then just like hang on till the next happy song. And so that's kind of what my album will be like, and some just general takeaways I hope people have.
I love that. It reminds me of a lyric from Rick Ocasek, who's best known for his work in the Cars. He had a song called "The Next Right Moment," where he says that he's just waiting for the next right moment to come. Simple as that.
I'm gonna
And
look after.
yeah, you're gonna love it. Billy Corgan co-produced it. It's really good. But it came out in '97. But
I love,
yeah, so if you're a fan of like Celebrity Skin era Hole, like because Corgan had
yeah.
worked on those songs
Malibu
too.
is one of my,
Yeah, you'll
yeah.
love that then.
Malibu's
Same.
the, yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I love having new music to listen to.
Awesome. Well, let me know and what you think of that. And thank you so much again for your time, Kaylee. Seriously, this has been a dream come true of mine. You're one of my favorite songwriters of like the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And I think you've got the right kind of clout and power and strength in what you're doing to properly engage with like the next stage and like people that love music, like genuinely love music that's of a certain caliber. It's this is music like that has a lot of weight to it. Music that's very well constructed, that's coming straight from the heart. So I'm cheering you on in my own way.
Thank
Carry
you.
on doing what you're doing, and I'll be supporting you, like I said, any way that I can.
Thank you so much, Max. It was so great talking to you. Thank you for listening and sticking around during the my unfamous era and having me on now.
Yeah, totally, totally. I mean, you're always welcome, and thanks for being a supporter of this while I continue to grow what I'm doing here. So always, until next time, okay?
All right. Thanks so much, Max.
All right, take care.
Bye.